Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us here in the Rochester Press Box. Bill Pucko, and gentlemen, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. I wish everybody would leave the Jackie Robinson statue alone.
Yeah, what the heck was that?
Come on, can we just not touch that statue ever? Like, just leave it the way it is?
I think that you need to elaborate a little more on that.
Well, apparently somebody thought it would be funny to destroy the statue and just kidnap it, and then what did they do? Like, melt it down?
Yeah, they set it on fire and cut it off at the feet. It was nuts.
It was just bizarre. It was in, I believe, Kansas City, wasn't it?
I think so.
And so, I don't know, maybe a statement by someone to protect baseball statues from now on, maybe more camera security. Very sad, but
it's an odd mode of celebration.
Yeah, no, I don't know much what to do with that. So
how are you doing?
I'm good. Why? Do I look tired?
Sabres? No, you look great. You look great.
Rocking the hockey legend and donut aficionado Tim Horton Sabres jersey this morning.
Very nice.
There you go.
Hey, we're in the week between. You know what struck me? Like watching the games that produced the Super Bowl pairing is damn, this is hard. This is hard to do. It's hard to get there. And when we were talking before, you're talking about, like what's going to be different for the Buffalo Bills next year. I almost feel like there's 6 teams you could throw them in a bag and pull one out. And like the Bills are going to get it when it's their time, and that they only have a certain amount of control over it.
Well, you mentioned that the key word there is time. And I know a lot of people like to throw in there, their window is closed, it's over. I'm like, it's not. I've seen teams you've been this sort of buried and dead and come back resurrection. So I'm not willing to do that to the Bills fans going forward. But I am concerned, just like I've been concerned the last few years, that the window is closing. I'm not sure what to make of this. I mean, we'll talk a little bit later on about their coaching decisions and McDermott giving him more power with the results he's already got. I don't see how you do that, but I get it. You've already invested in him by giving him a new contract last year, so now you got to double down on that. I'm not quite sure what to go into the offseason thinking about, but I am thinking about the draft.
Yeah. Well, we'll come back to that. Actually, that's a good thing. Again, it's hard, right?
Well, I mean, it's just weird, right? Like, it's really strange to me. Like, I think something's wrong with my head because, like, 2 years ago, we had this conversation about how the Bills' window was closing and they're not going to get back. And then, it was over. And then last year, we had this conversation about how the window was closing and, like, you got coordinators leaving. And, right, the win under on loss was 10.5. And then they were the second seed this season. Are you guys kidding me right now with all this?
No, we're not.
The team is going to get younger, and that's a good thing for the Bills. This season, as the rookies and second and third-year players were inserted, the team got stronger. You got to hit on a couple of draft picks this year. You have talent. The weight you're losing on this team is going to take an adjustment, but I think it benefits in the long run. And here's the fact of the matter. As long as Josh Allen is your quarterback, your window is never closed.
Right. And that's a given, but you can't argue that the salary cap situation is a plus.
I don't believe in this. Oh, what are you talking about? When it comes to Kansas City?
They're over it.
Yes, no, I understand. But you realize the salary cap is not real because Brandon Beane is going to take 3 contracts, whether it's Dawson Knox, Ed Oliver, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs.
But it is real.
But it's not. I mean, look, you'll pay for it at the end when they decide, all right, we're going to break this whole thing down. But you don't have to pay for it until you decide we're going to shut this thing down. Mark my words. Sure, they're not going to go out and sign a splashy free agent. How many times have I said mark my words and come through? Better watch it.
That was
Better
in 2023. We're in 2024 now. That year is over with.
You guys told me they weren't going to hit 10 wins. You guys told me they had no chance of making the playoffs. You guys told me they had no chance of winning the division.
I never said no chance. I said it's slipping.
Brandon Beane is a great general manager. I am not worried about the cap situation.
Although, let me just say that, can we go back to the revisionist history? Towards the end of the Buffalo Bills season, they were about a 500 team. They went on an incredible run, got a great call in Kansas City. It was the right call. I'm not trying to debate it, but it was a call, you know full well, that has been discussed since then as a lucky break that finally went the Buffalo Bills' way. Relax, take it easy. And let's go over the fact that you did get rid of an offensive coordinator who came in and gave more plays to Josh Allen. They resulted in great offense. Same thing with running the football. Same thing I have to admit on that one. But let's be real and honest here. You haven't gotten over the hump yet. And there's got to be some internal reason or concern about doubling down again for the Bills next season with the cap injury.
So what do? You don't have the cap space to go make major changes. You're not going to fire your head coach. He's the reason you've been here the whole time.
But you can't say that and at the same time say that the window isn't a little smaller next year than it was this.
And oh, by
much
the way,
smaller than it was the year before.
And oh, by the way, still beat Miami. They took you to the last game of the season to do so. You did get the number 1 seed. Still didn't benefit you going against Kansas City. So I don't know what
we got a lot of time. Because we got a long off season, we can cover all these things.
Like, do I every week now have to say save the tape? So when the Bills have a 2-game lead in week 16 next season, and they're looking at the 1 or the 2 seed, I can look and say, I told you guys so.
But of all the elite teams, They're the only one that hasn't gotten to a Super Bowl yet. The Eagles got it. The Niners, Chiefs, Bengals have all been.
You don't consider Baltimore elite?
And Baltimore.
Okay, but there you go. You're an MVP, Lamar Jackson, a soon-to-be two-time MVP, who also
but it
hasn't
wasn't
gotten
last
there.
year.
Okay.
This was a one-year shot for Baltimore.
You said it yourself. 6 teams in a bag, pull one out depending on how bounces go. I believe the same thing.
And the Bills' name is the one that hasn't come up yet.
Give it time.
It's supposed to be a down year for KC, yet they're in the Super Bowl.
All right, we're way over that segment. This is the Rochester Press Box. We're making our picks next. Just passing through. Life lessons from notable Rochesterians. People you may think you know. Don Alhart and Maggie Brooks, John Dady and Stacy Pension, J. Mack and Soccer Sam, Fred Costello, and Jake Zembeck, along with 21 more. How they all got from there to here. It's a new book by Bill Pucko, available for $12 postpaid only from rocksportsnow.com. Try it, and thank you. Our NFL Pick segment in the Rochester Press Box, brought to you by Connors and Ferris, your trusted and dedicated workers' comp attorneys and official sponsor of the Buffalo Bills. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. It is time for our pick segment. Our pick segment brought to you by Connors and Ferris, your workers' comp attorneys. All right, we have to stretch this out this week, and I hope you guys understand that with me leading in this thing, that I'm giving you all an extra chance to catch us up by doing a couple of prop bets prior to the Super Bowl. Comment.
No, this sounds like a eulogy is what it sounds like, but go on.
All right, I have one given. Greg, hey, welcome. Greg Connors joining us, as always, on our pick segment. So what we're doing, we're taking 2 prop bets, either passing, receiving, or rushing yard totals from among any of the players involved in the Super Bowl a week hence. And just so that we understand how things are going, I'm just going to get mine out of the way first. I'm taking of Kansas City, I'm taking Marquez Valdez-Scantling over 19.5 yards receiving, and I'm taking Patrick Mahomes over 25.5 rushing yards. Oh. Those are my 2 picks. What do you got, Greg?
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure I get this right, Bill. This is a betting scheme for me, and I'm not good at this stuff. But
well, your record demonstrates that.
Don't my picks, right? My picks for the year. Yeah. I'm going with Ayuk with over 63.5 yards receiving. Him being that secondary receiver in Kansas City's defense, I think he's going to do that. And then I'm going with Brock Purdy having more than 11.5 yards rushing against the Kansas City defense.
What is going on in this room right now? What are you guys doing?
Did you not see his rushing yards in the second half of that game?
Which is why he ain't going to do it again.
I don't know about that. They had to come back and win that game, so that ain't that bad of a bet.
I think he found himself. I think he found his secondary reserve of what's going to separate him from other quarterbacks these days. And he's going to become the next Josh Allen.
I just that's a one-up. So look, you're taking 2 San Francisco guys, Greg. Is that to say, sort of peeking into the future, that you're leaning San Francisco in the game?
I always bet with my heart, Bill. So that could be an indication of where I'm leaning. Yes.
I'll have to go with the receiving yards for George Kittle. I mean, I just think that 49.5 is just way too low. If you really heard any sort of thoughts on what he thought about losing that Super Bowl and getting back to that Super Bowl, I think he'll play a big game. Part of him, I think, because he's the showman, wants to outshine his fellow tight end and Kelsey. So I look for a big night today for George Kittle. I think he's over 49.5.
Okay, you got one?
I got 2, bud. And look, let's talk logic now. Thank you, guys. I would like to thank all of you for the picks you just made. Patrick Mahomes.
You kind of flipped out.
Patrick Mahomes, despite all of this run that everyone's talking about, has had a pretty pedestrian statistical playoffs. He's at 260 and change for over-under on passing yards. I'm going under on that. Also, they have Christian McCaffrey at 90.5 rushing yards over under. Have you guys seen the rushing defense for the Chiefs this year? The Bills tore them apart until those last couple of drives. The Ravens didn't even try them, despite the fact that Lamar was getting chunks of yardage when he pulled the ball down, and they were getting 5, 10, 15-yard chunks with their running backs. I am going over with McCaffrey on the rushing yards, and it's done, guys. It's done.
So it's over McCaffrey. What's the other one?
Over McCaffrey, under on passing for Patrick Mahomes.
And you owe us one more.
I will throw in Deebo Samuels. He's averaging, they're saying about, 15 yard. I think that's over. You got to go over with the Deebo Samuels, even though he's got that shoulder injury.
Yeah, these are fun. And this, again, is only because I couldn't find a line on the flag football game. I looked. I honestly looked.
I got a guy. You should have called me.
A guy.
I got a guy.
All right. Hey, Greg, our first segment conversation involved, like, expectations, Buffalo Bills, and, like, maybe you have to dial them down. Not so much that they're not a Super Bowl contender, but there's so many teams, and it's so hard to get there. Like, to what degree do you appreciate what the Bills did this year?
Well, I think with the injuries that they had and how they overcame that, particularly come to the end of the year, that's something for them to build on. I like what they're doing with the defense. McDermott bringing or giving Babich more responsibilities in evolving and learning. The players love him. He brings great energy. And it always stinks this time of year as a Bills fan because you're looking at Valentine's Day thinking, when's the draft going to be? But I am looking forward to training camp come Rochester in the fall, in the spring, in the summer.
Good luck with your picks. Thanks for joining us again. Greg Connors, our pick segment brought to you by Connors and Ferris, your workers' comp attorneys. Like It or Not is next.
Here's the Press Box Trivia question brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road.
How about a getaway to an amazing museum about a local aviation pioneer? Mike O'Brien, your getaway guy. You're going to love this winter getaway. Look for the getaway guy right now on Facebook.
Here's the Press Box Trivia answer brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. Pat, like it or not, the Buffalo Bills stay within the organization to rehire, I guess, both coordinators.
I get from the outside why this would look like a problem, right? Sticking with Joe Brady as your offensive coordinator and going with Bobby Babich as your defensive coordinator. But what's interesting about Babich is he has a deep NFL lineage. His dad had been a coach in the league for years, coached under McDermott while he was in Buffalo. Bobby Babich came from Carolina with McDermott, and he's actually following the same kind of trail that McDermott did before he got his defensive coordinator position, started in the defensive backs, moved to linebacker. Bobby Babich had coached the safeties and then the linebackers in Buffalo everywhere he was. As the safeties coach, both Poyer and Hyde were all pros. As the linebackers coach this past season, you saw Terrell Bernard make a light-year jump. Matt Milano was having an all-pro season before he ended up getting hurt. I like the call with Joe Brady, with what he was able to do going on that run. Does he not deserve another look coming back next season?
I don't know. I just would have thought differently offensively going forward for them. Defensively, it's an extension of the head coach. So it makes perfect sense. You could put anybody you want in there or no one at all and still got the defense you're going to get from last year into this.
But you were making the point earlier that it's a good thing, you think, within an organization to bring people in from the outside who might challenge your views as a head coach.
I think I like a little bit of, let me just push the envelope a bit. Let's think differently. What are the results thus far? Other than making the playoffs every year, which the Buffalo Bills have been able to do, they have not been able to go that deep. They've gone to divisional, they've gone to the AFC Championship game, but the goal is to get to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. How did Detroit get there before Buffalo did?
God, coordinators are important too. You look what happened in Detroit. The guy decides to stay.
Word on the street is he wanted too much money, and he's banking on another great season where somebody's forced to give it to him.
Yeah, boy, that's a year out of your career.
I tell you what, though, if Detroit does get there and finally does get to the Super Bowl next year, his price goes up again.
Like it or not, the NBA's 65-game rule to qualify for postseason awards.
I do like it. I do know that there are major superstars that may get injuries and legitimate injuries, and they're not just resting for the night. But I do think that there should be some sort of exemption rule that comes in. Maybe if you're really that close, it gets exempted. I understand that, but let's be real. If I'm going to a regular season game, which I've gone to at the end of the regular season because that's my son's birthday, we go to an NBA game, I would want to see the superstars play, whether it's at a lower discounted price or a high discounted price, or they just want to rest for the playoffs. I get it, but I think the way that they wanted this was to get the superstars on the screen, on the court, playing as much basketball during the regular season, so I'm good with it.
It's such lip service. The superstars don't care. You think Embiid cares if he gets another MVP? You think anybody cares if they're all NBA teams? So then why aren't they playing?
These guys have big egos.
Incentive contracts, too.
Well, here's the thing. Yes, younger, middle-of-the-road guys have incentive contracts, right? LeBron, what's a bonus? A $200,000 bonus for LeBron winning MVP? What does that mean? The guy's a billionaire, for God's sakes. It's all lip service. It's the NBA saying, look, we tried to do something. Look what we did. Did it help Embiid play more games this season? He sat sat out healthy against Denver in the most anticipated game of this month. Doesn't matter.
That's the Rochester Press Box. Unfinished business. Next.
The Press Box Stat of the Week is being brought to you by McArdle's Restaurant in Fairport. Come home to McArdle's.
Came now to Eichel. He floated one.
Unfinished Business is brought to you by Greg the Roofer. Better roof, better price. Better call Greg today. Save time and money on your roof and siding. Call us today for a free estimate. Special financing's available. Visit us online at gregtheroofer.com.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. It's time for Unfinished Business, brought to you by Greg the Roofer. Pat, start us.
Things are changing in Syracuse. First of all, new head coach for the Syracuse Orange football team, going the recruiting route instead of the actual football route. And they have been named a team to watch for next season. But I want to talk about Syracuse basketball because last year was a tire fire, as was the year before, as Jim Boeheim was trying to figure out what he could do to transition slowly out of his position. The Cuse have surprised people this year, the men's basketball team on the court. And it stinks because in the last week, they lost a very winnable game to Boston College. In fact, it was like the first time Boston College beat Syracuse in like 10 separate games. But there is promise here. You are moving away from the Boeheim specter. You got guys that are playing ball the right way. And you got a new head coach who is not only invested in Syracuse, but he's invested not so much in his own ego, but these kids being able to play well together. If I am a Syracuse basketball fan right now, and if you watch the show, you know I have had some very critical things to say the last couple of years, I feel good about this. I feel I'm 2, 3, 4 years away from being, again, a perennial powerhouse in the ACC. And it's about time all the Boeheim defenders finally realize that him walking away from this program, even though he was shoved really hard, was the best thing that could have happened to them in the last 10 years.
Oh, where are you, conspiracy theory NFL guy who thought that the Baltimore Ravens were going to take on the 49ers in the Super Bowl? What happened in the middle of the season? I know all you guys who love to throw in conspiracy theories love to throw in a nice little dart, so I'll give it to you. Taylor Swift is what happened. They just wanted her on the screen, and the Kansas City Chiefs were able to go to the Super Bowl. Now they'll have the biggest ratings ever. Yes, they will have the biggest ratings ever, but it's not because of any conspiracy theory. How could it be that the Buffalo Bills get tortured every single time and it be a scripted NFL? It's not possible. Why would you torture this brand that much and these fans so much to do this? This whole theory about the NFL being scripted, it will be a scripted show, but the game is real. Alpha's going on. Alpha's trying to get the ultimate championship. I get it. You'll have your referee who did this or wants that, or some guy who wants to line it up and go the other way. But when it comes down to making field goals and not making field goals, touchdowns, and all these great things, the Alphas are always playing this game at the highest level in front of the entire world. The NFL's Super Bowl is the proof that it's not.
There are hundreds of great expressions out there, useful idioms. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Beggars can't be choosers. And the one that is most apropos to sports, hindsight, is always 20/20. That's how we know that Lions coach Dan Campbell should have taken those 2 field goals last week instead of going for it on 4th down against San Francisco in a game he lost by 3. He'd be preparing for Detroit's first Super Bowl right about now. That's how we know that the Ravens should have handed off to their league-leading running backs maybe more than 6 times in their loss to Kansas City. Could change things. It's how we know that the Buffalo Bills should have tried to get Scott Norwood a little bit closer for his potential game-winning field goal attempt 34 years ago in the Super Bowl loss to the Giants. Buffalo wouldn't be so long-suffering, perhaps. He missed from 47 yards. And while we're at it, maybe Squibb kicked that ball in the 13-second game, while at the same time forgetting that the Music City Miracle, legal or otherwise, came off a short kickoff. Hindsight may be 20/20, but you can't have it both ways. Since hindsight is always 20/20, we know that 31 NFL teams should not have passed on Tom Brady 5 times each in the 2000 draft, and that the Portland Trail Blazers should have taken Michael Jordan instead of Sam Bowie in the 1984 NBA draft. Because hindsight is 20/20. We know that way back in 1956, Rochester Royals owner Les Harrison should not have traded away the rights to Bill Russell for a few choice circus dates. And back even further, in 1918, the Red Sox owner Harry Frazee shouldn't have financed the play No No Nanette with the money that he got from selling Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees. We know all these things to be true because hindsight is always 20/20. The rest is history. That is our Unfinished Business, brought to you by Greg the Roofer, and that is our show.
You can criticize Les Harrison all you want for trading Bill Russell for the Ice Capades, but were you at that Ice Capade show? It could have been the greatest Ice Capade show of all time.
How do you script that last 13 seconds? I just don't get it.
And I had to look at the Music City Miracle and say, you know what? They did there what they wanted to do here. And neither one of them worked.
No, this is fun. I'm having fun recalling all these things. This is good.
Hey, thanks for joining us, and join us again next week with the Rochester Press Box.
Did I say everybody right?
Those ice capades are not the circus, huh?
Close enough.